Hey guys, it's Hannah and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. I'm very happy that you're here, and today I'm going to be showing you a ton of the books that I have gotten over the past few months. Obviously, I have not done a book haul in like 2 to 3 years, so these are not all the books I got in 2 to 3 years. I still actively purchased books, which is a little bad, but it's okay. There's like 25 plus books. I think there's like around 30 here. We're gonna get into it. A lot of these I've read already, but I haven't talked to you guys about them, so I'll be able to give you a little bit of my thoughts, but some of them I read this month, so I'll be saving that for my wrap up. But we have a lot to get through, so let's get started. First off, the beginning of this year in January, I went to New York and I actually bought a play while I was there at the Strand, which was so beautiful, so wonderful. I was so excited to go there. I also got my favorite tote bag ever from there. I had to get a play while I was there because I was on a theater trip, because if you didn't know, I studied theater in college. I just graduated this year. We did a New York trip that you could like apply to go to. So I was able to do that, which was so much fun, and we got to see a ton of different plays and stuff, so I felt like I couldn't leave New York without getting a play from somewhere. So I got a public reading of an unproduced screenplay about the death of Walt Disney. I just think this is gonna be so interesting. I don't know quite literally anything about it except it's a 4-person play. I just saw the title of it and was very intrigued. Oh my gosh, I have my Strand bookmark in it. I didn't even realize that. Love. This is by Lucas Nath though, who wrote A Doll's House Part 2, which I have also read. I've also seen that play in person too, because we've had a lot of productions go on. I love building up my play collection. Next, we're gonna go with 3 poetry books that I bought this past year. I've read 2 out of the 3 of them. First up is Home, and this is by Whitney Hansen. She's actually a TikTok poet, and she became famous on TikTok for her poetry. So this is her very first book that she's published. She also has a new one coming out called Harmony, which I'm so excited about. I just love poetry so much, and this one was a lot about losing, lost, flying, and home. So making your way back home. I'm excited to get my hands on another one of her books. Okay, the next 2 poetry books, and to end the like non-novel section, are by the same author, Courtney Peppernill, and these are both going to be Watering the Soul, and I also have The Way Back Home. Look at these characters. They are literally the cutest thing ever. I'm quite obsessed with them. So I've only read Watering the Soul. I started reading The Way Back Home. This first one is all about finding yourself again after something that you've gone through and kind of just watering the soul, like taking care of yourself and whatnot. And this one is all about grief and trying to find yourself after like something tragic has happened. This one was hitting a little too hard for me, so I put it down, but I'm very excited to get into it at some point soon because I honestly really loved these. Poetry books are just something that I have adored, so I really want to get my hands on more of Courtney Peppernill's, especially if these characters are in it, because they're just so cute. Now we're gonna get into the novel section of this video. This first one I have not read actually, and this is by Ashley Poston. It's her adult novel, well, one of her adult novels, and that's The 7-Year Slip. This is one of her new ones. I'm pretty sure it came out like a few weeks ago as I'm filming this. I'm very excited for this. It's basically about this girl named Clementine, and she moves into her aunt's apartment, but she finds a visitor there as she's there. He's this southern guy that she's like, what are you doing in my aunt's apartment, who had just passed away. Turns out that Clementine is 7 years in his future. I'm excited for like the real world with like a little bit tinge of fantasy. I really actually enjoy romances like that. I have read only 2 of her other books, Geekerella and The Princess and the Fangirl, so I'm really excited to dive into her adult books and see how her writing style differentiates from young adult to adult. Next up, we have another romance novel, which we have a lot of romance novels. I may or may not have gotten into a romance kick. When you guys knew me on BookTube, I was like deep into fantasy. Now basically all I read are romance books, so there's been a switch up. We have Love in the Time of Serial Killers. This is by Alicia Thompson. I got this book and one other book that you'll see when I was on spring break with my friends. I literally was on such a reading kick that week that I read through the 2 large books that I had brought with me, picked up 2 more books. Picked this up because I had seen it some other places and the title was just so intriguing. It's basically about this girl who has to go clean out her childhood home in Florida, and she believes that her neighbor is a serial killer. See, I have very mixed feelings on this book because I feel like the title didn't really go with writing, if that makes any sense. I feel like this should have gone under a different title than it is. She's kind of convinced that he's a serial killer for no reason. There's no substantial evidence to conclude that. I didn't really vibe with this book that much. I will say the main character kind of got annoying at some points. I enjoyed my time with it. I wouldn't necessarily reread it. Next is another romance book. Wow. So that is going to be Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is the second book in her Icebreaker series. I read Icebreaker at the beginning of this year, which I guess technically I could haul that as well. This follows one of the characters from that original novel. And if you didn't know anything about Icebreaker, I don't know how you wouldn't, because it's quite literally went viral. It's a hockey smut. I didn't know it was smut until reading it. Would you expect that from this cover? Like, genuinely, would you expect that from this cover? Because I didn't. I thought it was gonna be a cute little hockey romance. Yeah, it was a lot more than I expected, but here we are. I will say what I didn't like about Icebreaker is that it felt like the plot just got thrown out the window. I felt like there was kind of plot in the beginning and then it literally just disappeared. I don't really like books like that necessarily. Enjoyed my time with it, but I wish that it had more, I guess, substance to it. But I did like it enough to want to pick up more of Hannah Grace's other books. So I saw this one. This one takes place at a summer camp, so I'm very excited. Probably won't be reading it anytime soon just because I'm really trying to get into the fall spooky vibes with the books I'm reading. But I am excited for this. I think it'll be really fun. Really, Hannah Grace is one of those people that just lucks out with her book covers. Like, these are just beautiful. Like, I'm obsessed with them. They're so cute. So I have two of K.L. Walther's books. One of them I have read, one of them I saw at the bookstore, and I was so surprised about it because I was like, what is that? I didn't even know that was a thing. So we have Maybe Meant to Be and also What Happens After Midnight. Let's talk about the one that I have read. So What Happens After Midnight. I loved this book. This book is all about this girl named Lily, and she goes to this boarding school. Her mom's actually a teacher there, so she gets to like live on campus with her mom and everything, and it's a private boarding school. And she had just broken up with her boyfriend not that long ago. She's kind of getting towards the end of her senior year, and she's really worried that she basically has missed out on a lot of things in her high school career, which same girl, same. So their school has this tradition where a senior will become a jester. Their job is to basically fulfill the senior prank for that year. The jester is anonymously picked, no one knows who he is, and they can enlist other seniors for help. Turns out Lily's ex, Tag, is the jester. She gets a note in her mailbox asking for help carrying out the senior prank. A whole night of shenanigans and trying to carry out this elaborate prank while also not getting caught by the campus guards who are patrolling and trying to keep people in their dorms like they should be. And it's all about rekindled romance, which I really loved about this book. I feel like not a whole lot of books do that nowadays. Most of the time you should not get back with your ex, let's be honest. This one was cute. So, you know. So then we have Maybe Meant to Be. This one, I don't know too much about this, except there's this girl named Sage and this boy named Charlie. Charlie has a twin brother that Sage ends up falling for, and a new boy named Luke comes to the school and Charlie ends up falling for him. I think it's honestly just kind of following both of their romances. I heard that it had a different title and a different cover, but then it was republished. They also changed the title, which I think is so interesting. So I'm wondering if like the story itself has changed a little bit. It's getting to the point where she's one of my auto-buy authors, so I'm excited. If you hear my fan, I had to turn my fan on because it's getting disgustingly hot in here and I'm in overall pants, so sorry about that. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Oh, here's the other book that I bought on vacation over spring break. That is Carrie Soto is Back. I also have read this. This is a basically kind of like a fictional tennis biography about this woman. It basically kind of follows like all throughout her life. Speaking of auto-buy authors, Taylor Jenkins Reid is literally one of those. I adore everything that she writes. I really liked this. I am a sucker for sports biographies. I don't know what it is. I just watched Beckham. I binged it all in one day. I loved this. It follows this woman like all throughout her career, seeing how competitive Carrie is and how resilient she is and going through like a lot of the things that she went through, also driving that passion for tennis. Next, we have a book that I'm so excited about. Oh my god, you guys. I'm gonna do a reading vlog and a whole review on it because I'm unbelievably excited, and that is Percy Jackson and the Chalice of the Gods by Rick Riordan. I also ordered it signed because my Barnes & Noble didn't have it, and I was like, are you kidding me? The day of the release? So then I had to order it online, and I had the option to have it pre-signed. So I have it signed. which is so fun. It's basically about Percy. He's trying to get into college, and in order to get into college, you need letters of recommendation. So he's trying to ask all of these gods for letters of recommendation, but in order to get them, he has to go on quests that they send him on in order to get it. Because if you know anything about me, I got my whole start through Percy Jackson. These books didn't really get me into reading. I've kind of always loved reading since I was like very, very little, but it got me obsessed with reading. But that got me into Bookstagram, which then got me into BookTube. So it's like a whole chain of events, and now we're here. Next up, we have a book by Emily Henry, who's another autobi author. I've read all of her books, and so that is Happy Place. This is basically about Harriet and Wynne. It's all told in Harriet's perspective, and they met in college, and they're just basically a part of an entire big friend group. They're all best friends. They've graduated college. Harry and Wynne got together, and now they're engaged. However, the past year or so, they've really been distant, and they have not been talking because they had to move away from one another, but they're still technically engaged according to their friends. Harriet and Wynne have kept this a secret, and they were going to tell them until Harriet gets invited to her happy place, which is just a house that one of the girls in the friend group owns and is getting sold at the end of the week. That girl is also getting married at the end of the week. So Harriet and Wynne are like, okay, well, we have to pretend to be still engaged then. This basically switches back and forth between Harriet's happy place. So this is like way back in time, like when everything was super happy, everything was going really great with Harriet and Wynne, how they were falling in love, how they met, everything like that, till real life. So everything that's happening right now. It's so good. I can so see some of my friends from my friend group doing this. I just know this would happen. It's just one of those authors that writes such realistic romances and just stories, and they're very heartfelt. Emily Henry just has a way with words that I just adore. Next up, let's do Nora Goes Off Script. This is by Annabelle Monigan. I read this quite literally in like one sitting. It's just one of those books that you can quite literally fly through. It's so small. It's basically like a Hallmark movie in a book, which is funny because our main character writes scripts for Hallmark movies. It's not called Hallmark, it's called the Romance Channel. Anyways, she finally writes her big debut blockbuster movie. They have to come film it at her house because it's all about this tea house in her backyard, and it also goes through like in depth of how her marriage has crumbled with her husband, how that all came to be and whatnot. And so the guy playing her husband ends up staying with her for a little bit longer than he needs to, and they have a little romance. So it's super fun. I wish I would have gotten this from like the library or like gotten a cheaper audiobook or something, because I flew through this in one sitting, and it's just one of those books that I'm not going to ever read again. It's probably just gonna sit on my shelves for a while. It's definitely not the best written book ever, but it's like a Hallmark movie. Like if you literally take a Hallmark movie and slap it into a book, this is it. But it was enjoyable for what it was. 2 books by another autobi author. There's a trend. And those are Brandon Sanderson's books. So the first one, we have Tress of the Emerald Sea. We also have the Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. That's a tongue twister long book title, let me tell you. This first one I've read, this one I have not read, but these both are part of Brandon Sanderson's like secret novels that he wrote specifically for his wife, and kind of just like fun little stories for his wife, but then his wife like pushed him to publish them, so now we get them, which is so fun. I read this first one. This is basically about this girl named Tress. She has this best friend named Charlie, and he's kind of, I don't remember if he's a prince or just like someone high up on this island that they live on, and his father finds out about their relationship. He marries Charlie off to baddest witch. Tress is on a mission to go save him. I love Brandon Sanderson so much, but I didn't really find myself liking this one that much. When I read it, it was in the beginning of like July, and I was like really deep in a reading slump, and so it just felt like it was dragging for me. Brandon Sanderson really excels in his world building. I don't know if it's because of the standalone. I've only ever read series by him, and I've really loved all of his series, but I just like did not fully enjoy myself with this book. It took me forever to get through. I kind of really did feel like I had to push myself to get through it, which was really sad. This one is one I've also not heard like amazing things about. I've kind of heard that it's kind of the same as Tress in the Emerald Sea, where it's about this wizard who gets tossed back to medieval England, and all he has is this notebook, and he has quite literally no memory, and he does not know what is happening, and he's being chased. Brandon Sanderson originally had the title but didn't have the story. I'm not sure how many of these like secret novels he's publishing, but I've heard mixed reviews. So I'm hoping it ends up being good. Next we have Tom Hanks, The Making of Another Major Motion Picture Masterpiece. Another long title. It's basically about how he read this book that he turned into a movie and how it turned into a movie, which if you know anything about me, I want to get into film. So my roommate had bought it, so I saw it and I was like, okay, cool. I also want to get that and see if it's good. All right, we're gonna have to speed through the rest of these because I have to go pick my sister up from school. Let's get going. Next is a book that I bought because I was obsessed with a TV show, then they canceled it on Netflix. Which Netflix, I will never forgive you for canceling Julie and the Phantoms, and now this. You know what, it's fine. It's not fine, but it's fine. And that's the Screaming Staircase. This is the first book in the Lockwood & Co. series, and this is by Jonathan Stroud. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that Rick Riordan blurbed this. Me and my roommate watched this, and we were obsessed with it. We were obsessed with Lockwood so much. The hand choreography? Can we talk about that man's hand choreography? They knew what they were doing. I ended up buying this because I was super interested with like the story and the storyline, and because now they canceled it, so now I have the books, but that's okay. I'm excited about these. I'm pretty sure they're children's books. I want to say it's around the same vibes as Rick Riordan's books. Next we have All Good People Here. This is by Ashley Flowers. I watch Crime Junkie so much. She is the main host of Crime Junkie, her and Britt. So I saw that she had this because I listen to Crime Junkie so much. I really got into it, not this past summer, but the summer before that when I was doing a painting internship. So I would literally just be painting 9 to 5, 5 days a week. So I got tired of music really fast. So I got into Crime Junkie, and I finally saw it at Target the other day. And so I picked it up, but I don't know anything about this except that it was supposedly written by Ashley Flowers. So that's why I picked this up. It's gonna be another thriller mystery. Next, we're gonna have 3 Christina Lauren books, and I've read all of these actually. We have Something Wilder, we also have The Soulmate Equation, and The True Love Experiment, which these two go together. This first one was wild. It's like a whole treasure hunt thing. It's like a treasure hunt romance. It was fun. It was really fun. Like, don't get me wrong, it just was like, it was not what I was expecting at all. These two, The Soulmate Equation is basically about this like website that now pairs you depending on like genetically how much you guys would get along and like be like perfect partners. And so is this one. This book has characters from this book, so definitely read this one first. Do you think I liked this book better than this one? This one's about this author and she goes on a TV show. I enjoyed my time with them. I don't think they're my favorite Christina Lauren books, but they were definitely very fun. We have Chloe Gong's Foul Lady Fortune. Can we look at the sprayed edges? I don't know anything about this book except Chloe Gong wrote These Violent Delights. I read both of those books so fast because I was obsessed with them. I just bought it because I knew I loved Chloe Gong's other 2 books. This girl was brought back from the brink of death and now she can't die. That should be fairly interesting, so I'm very intrigued. Next up, we have a book that I just started reading, and that's If We Were Villains. This is by M.L. Rio. This has been very comparable to The Secret History, which I loved. I read it way back in high school and I was obsessed with it, but it's also one of those books that like I really want to reread it, but it's just so dense. The writing and the storyline, just everything's so dense. It's kind of like the movie. I don't know if you guys ever watched it. It's called The Devil All the Time. It came out in like 2020, but after I watched it for the first time right when it came out, I could not watch it again, and I still have not watched it again. I think we're kind of nearing the time where I could potentially watch it again. So I got up We Were Villains, which is about thespians in college. I studied theater, so I did not do acting. I was not an actor. I'm only 22 pages in, but it's basically about these thespians and they're at their last year in their conservatory and a murder occurs, and so it's basically you trying to kind of put together everything that happens and their dynamic. I'm pumped for this. It's gonna be really good. Next, we have another book that I have already read. This is actually my last read, and that is Then She Was Gone. This is by Lisa Jewell. I just read this, and it's just one of those books that makes you feel icky at the end because it's a mystery thriller. It's about this woman named Laurel and her daughter Ellie went missing 10 years ago, and it kind of switches back points of view, except I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not gonna elaborate a whole lot on this. I think it's better to go into this not really knowing anything because I was floored. It's definitely one of those books that's gonna make you feel like gross afterwards. Her daughter Ellie went missing 10 years ago and she meets this guy in the coffee shop that she ends up like liking, and his daughter looks a lot like how Ellie did. It just, That made me feel so icky. All right, next, let's do There's Someone Inside Your House. This is by Stephanie Perkins. I remember when this first came out. I love Stephanie Perkins, but I didn't buy it because it was avoidant on anything scary. And so I found this at the store the other day, and I really wanted another book that I know is gonna be like another mystery thriller because it's just the vibes, the spooky season. So I'm really hoping to get to this before the end of the month. It's not that far away. It's also a Netflix film, which I had no idea about, but Courtney Summers reviewed it of Sadie, and she's one of my favorites. So I'm excited for this. So next up we have The Wicked Remain. This is by Laura Pohl. I was obsessed with this. I finished the Grimrose Girls, which is right here, and I needed the next one immediately. So I immediately Amazoned it, like when I was nearing the end of this one, and I read it immediately after. I finished it in like 2 days. I flew through these. So it follows 4 different girls, and it follows each one of their points of view, and the chapters were super short, so you could just like keep reading and reading. I find if chapters are really short, I just keep flying through them. So I really liked that about these, and also the storyline was so interesting. It's basically kind of like a fairy tale retelling, but very dark and gruesome. Basically about these 4 girls, and their friend had just died at the beginning of this novel. The police chalk it up as suicide. However, the girls don't believe that because she drowned in the lake, and there was no way she would have like ever done that. They find this fairy tale book hidden deep in her closet when a new girl comes to live in her new dorm, because this takes place at a very fancy boarding school, and it turns out the entirety of the Grimrose Academy is under a curse. Now, I don't want to say much else because I was really obsessed with these and it was just so much fun. Next we have another book that I read in October, and that is Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. This is by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I really want to read more of her books now because I just really loved this. This is an enemies to lovers book, and it also has like a whole like game aspect to it, like what happens after midnight, which I really love. I love those types of books. They're just so much fun. It's basically about this girl named Rowan and this guy named Neil. They have been academic rivals since freshman year, when Neil won this essay writing contest that Rowan should have won. So they've been competing all throughout 4 years, and they finally reached their last day of high school, and Rowan finds out that Neil got valedictorian. So she wants to beat him in one last thing, so she chooses the end of the year senior game. So they play this game. It's kind of like capture the flag, scavenger hunt-esque assassin. Rowan is intended to beat him. However, they end up getting closer and closer because they have to work together, and it's enemies to lovers, so of course. I will say Rowan was a little annoying with how much she was hating him, but I honestly want another book about them because I just think this was so fun and so cute. So I'll probably be saying more in my wrap-up, but I recommended this. It was cute. Next up is another book that I read that I'll talk more about in my wrap up, and that is My Roommate is a Vampire. This is by Jenna Levine. It is actually about a vampire, which I was hesitant about because I didn't know if it was, and I really wanted to be. Because you know sometimes when those books like say that it's like about a vampire or something, and then it ends up being like some like semi-realistic explanation and they're not actually a vampire. He's actually a vampire, and it's a vampire romance. So this girl finds this apartment in Chicago, and it's way too good to be true price, but she follows up on it anyways, moves in, finds blood bags in the fridge, and realizes that her roommate is a vampire. It was so fun. I was obsessed with it. It was just, I loved every moment of it except for the end. The end really put me off. I think it went by way too fast, and I did not really like how the ending went. It happened in like 2 pages, and I was like, this is too much buildup for this to end in like 2 pages, and it was way too easy. That's the one thing I don't like about this book, but everything else I recommend for this October season. Next we have Cassandra Clare's new book, Swordcatcher. I am so thrilled that she is writing like a whole new series that's like not based in like the Shadowhunter world. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm obsessed with the Shadowhunter world. This entire shelf is Cassandra Clare books. I've heard nothing but amazing things about this one too. It's forbidden love, dangerous magic, and a secret that could break the kingdom. Other than that, I know nothing. But it's Cassandra Clare, so it can't not be good. It's a big one too. Cassandra Clare writes huge books, but I know it's gonna be brilliant. Then we have A Deadly Education. This is by Naomi Novik. I don't know a whole lot about this one either, except that it takes place at a magic school, and I've heard that this first one is amazing, but everyone kind of doesn't really like the second one that much, but I'm pretty sure it's a trilogy. But it was a magic school and I could not buy it. And it kind of floated around BookTube and Bookstagram like years ago when it first came out. I'm a sucker for magic schools, let me tell you. They're just so good and so fun. Next, we have Fourth Wing. This is by Rebecca Yarros. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your last name right. I'm so sorry. I think it's gonna be interesting. I love dragons a lot. Other than that, I don't know anything except that it's extremely popular. It literally went viral on Book Talk. The main reason why I bought this was because I really want to make a video kind of comparing everyone's reviews to it and like how I think of it, because everyone's reading it. So I thought it would be interesting to read and see what the hype is about and make a video on it and like a whole reading vlog and stuff like that. So that's the main reason why I bought this. Other than that, I know nothing, so we'll see if it's good or not. I'll let you guys know. Alrighty, we have 2 books left for this book haul, and that is gonna be The Brothers Hawthorne, and this is by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I loved the Inheritance Games. I read that trilogy so fast. I was obsessed with it, and then I saw this at the bookstore and I had no idea this was coming out. When I tell you I have not been fully involved in the book community in the past few years, like I don't really know fully when new books are coming out except an occasional few. I had no idea about this book, so I immediately bought it. I snatched it off the shelf and ran to the register. I don't know what's happening, except it follows Grayson and Jameson, which I love them. There was some big tea there in the last book. More games for them to play, so I think it'll be super fun. I'm wondering if this takes place in the future, because if it does, then I think it'll be very intriguing to see where all of the characters in the last book ended up, considering there was like a whole love triangle and lots of things happened. If you have not read the Inheritance Games, it's a very quick trilogy that like you will not be able to put down, so highly recommend. The first book looks like this. And finally, we have another book by an auto-buy author, and that's gonna be V. Schwab's new book, which I'm so excited because it's a connecting series off of A Darker Shade of Magic, which is one of my all-time favorite trilogies as well, and that is The Fragile Threads of Power. I know nothing about this, except I'm pretty sure Delilah's in it, and I'm obsessed with her. She's so badass, so awesome. I know nothing else, except there's a lot of pages. It's gonna be a whole wild ride. I can already tell, and I'm so excited that there's gonna be another connecting series based off of this. So that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is actually my second time filming this because I use iMovie. I used to use Adobe until my student subscription ended, so now I have to pay for it, which I don't want to. So it basically corrupted the entirety of this file, so that's why I haven't uploaded in like 2 weeks. But now we have to refilm it, but that's okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy that you did, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. I love you so much, and have a good one. Bye.